Before hearing from the candidates, we need to go through a few preliminaries. Preliminary number one is that if you have a cell phone or similar device, we would respectfully request that you put it in the Happy Sleepy Dead mode. Please check that cell phone. Number two, we would ask that you please remember that these candidates are the gladiators of American democracy. We may criticize them and ridicule them, and I've done as much of that as just about anybody in North Alabama. But they ultimately make democracy work by getting in the arena of electoral competition. The truth is, some of the rest of us, we pay attention, but we're in the stands. They're on the field of play, and it's a lot tougher. So please respect their participation by avoiding any conduct, body language, hissing, booing, or other impolite and uncivilized behavior. Everybody here, well, hopefully everybody here, expects to be informed and not have a political pep rally. Controversial ideas will be uttered. That is the nature of American politics. But I always urge students and people at events like this to remember, a person ultimately shows their genuine belief in the free speech of America if they tolerate free speech by those with whom they fundamentally disagree. Item 3, we also need to give some recognition to some individuals who spent extra time, made extra time and effort to make this event possible. I would ask that these individuals stand as I call their names, remain standing, and I would ask that you hold your applause until they've all been announced. From the Chamber of Commerce, there's Jennifer Williamson, Tony McCormick. Tony, where are you? From the News Courier, there's Adam Smith. From the University, there's Guy McClure, Rick Bowl, Curtis Cagle. And from the Veterans Museum, there's Sandy Thompson. Please join me in thanking you. I would want all the candidates to know that Ms. Thompson told me earlier that as timekeeper she has 2 little bells, both metal. One bell works and she rings it. The other one is designed to be thrown at you. The rules of format for tonight's event were developed primarily by the Chamber with input from other parties. The questions asked by the candidates were developed jointly by the News Courier, the Chamber, and yours truly. The Chamber extended invitations to candidates in competitive races for County Commission, Sheriff, the State Legislature, and U.S. Congress. Many, in fact, a large majority of these candidates graciously accepted the invitation. A small number declined. For races where there is only one candidate participating, that candidate will be afforded an opportunity to address the audience for 3 minutes about any subject or subjects of their choice. No questions will be asked of that candidate. For offices where both candidates are present, each candidate will be provided 1 minute for a brief introduction of themselves. Then the candidates will answer 4 questions, with each candidate having the opportunity to respond first. The candidate who answers the question first has 2 minutes for a response. The other candidate has 1 minute for a response to that same question, and then the first candidate has a brief 30 seconds for a rebuttal if he so chooses. There are 4 questions for each office, and we are alternating between the candidates, so there's an equitable allocation of time. Also, who gets the first question in the rotation was determined by a random draw by Chamber personnel. After the candidates finish answering the 4 questions, each candidate will be afforded 1 minute for a closing statement. The order this evening will be as follows. Limestone County Commission District 1, Limestone County Commission District 3, Limestone County Sheriff, State House of Representatives District 5, State Senate District 1, House District 5, House District 2, and U.S. House District 5. Candidates, do I need to repeat that list for you? Okay, thanks. Okay, let's get started. Will any commission candidate for County Commission Seat 1 please come forward? Mr. Hill, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank everybody. I'd especially like to thank the people, Alabama Veterans Museum at Athens State University and Athens News Courier and the Chamber of Commerce. This is something that it's good that they would do. I told all these in the blue t-shirt, if I got nervous, I was going to call on them to smile at me. But I didn't see all these green ones. There's some of them come in after I got over here. But I'm Stanley. I'm a candidate for District 1 Commission. And I really do take my hat off to Brad and others, wherever he's at. When you have to take off to earn a living, I take my hat off to him. I would like to thank the voters, the taxpayers. I have a different attitude about the political arena. Anybody that's in politics, they've earned it. It's something that a lot of people don't want to do and some wants to do. It is somebody, I take my hat off to all of you that's politicians here tonight. I've been working, I've been politicking, I've been eating a lot, and I've enjoyed it. A lot of things, I've been door to door, and I can truly say that I've enjoyed it. But it's been a good while from February to November. And I see a lot of people out there that are friends, and I appreciate the support. And the thing about it is, if you have a candidate and you want him to win, you need to go vote. Like everybody says, well, you're doing all right. Well, yeah, I'm doing all right, but let's go vote. And it's our responsibility as citizens of the United States to go vote. I hear a lot of people sometimes complain about things, and I've been with them. I'm like the brother over here, I've probably done my share of complaining. But if you don't go vote, you won't change it. And I thank everybody. Please go vote November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Any candidates for Commission District 3? Mr. Black, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. I have practiced all day long for this. I've gone up against a lot of good people today. I beat John F. Kennedy today in the debate. I beat Richard Nixon today in the debate. And Tom Butler texted me today, so I tapped more than he did, so I beat him too. I want to just tell a few things about me. I'm Jason Black, born and raised here in Limestone County, 45 years old. I'm married to Velvet Robinson Black, Birmingham. I got a 11-year-old, Allie Ruth Black, and Jason Black is my 14-year-old. I also see that my sister and my nephew are here tonight. My mother couldn't make it. My mom is Marcia Black. My father's the late Spencer Black. Getting on that, a lot of people have made the statement throughout this campaign that, you're getting a lot of recognition because your dad is Spencer Black. I appreciate that. The way I look at it is this. My dad set the foundation for me. Now I'm going to set the foundation for somebody else. When it came time for me to run for office, who did I go ask about what I need to put on my sign? I asked Mike Blakely. And I tell you what he told me. He said, don't put your daddy's name on it. He said, someday you're going to have to stand on your own. He said, this is the time to start. So I'm Jason Black. On the ballot it says Jason Spencer Black because Charles Woodruff asked for a full name. That's my full name. That's as good as it gets. But I'm my own person. I've been teaching and coaching for 19 years. I'm a member of Mount Carmel Church of Christ. I graduated Columbus High School. I went to Calhoun on an athletic scholarship. I graduated from Auburn University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in history. I went to Alabama A&M and got a master's degree in education. And then I went further and went to UNA and got a master's degree in instructional leadership. Been involved in emergency management my entire life. That was my dad's. Whatever he did, I did. Whatever I do, my children do. That's the way we do it in my house. We're a family. Limestone County needs to be a family. We got too many people from the outside coming in telling us what to do. I'm going to work with Huntsville, I'm going to work with Decatur, I'm going to work with Madison, but we've got to be our own people. We've got to go out there and we got to find that economic development that we want to put out there. We got to be able to make sure that the health and welfare of the people of Limestone County is taken care of. I'm a member of the National Rifle Association, Alabama Wildlife, Alabama Cattlemen's, been involved with Ducks Unlimited, and of course, Relay for Life. I wrote a few things down here tonight because I didn't know if my opponent would be here or not. I hate that he's not. This is a great, great forum for anybody to be able to come out and tell what you're for. To be a successful commissioner, I put down that you must promote economic development and you must provide jobs. Let me just finish this just 1 second. I'm speaking for my other guy too, because it should really be about 18 minutes. All of these things are important that I want to tell you, there's all the little handouts and all that, but the number one thing is this. When I go to bed at night, and when these politicians and these people that represent you go to bed at night, did you do something that day to make their life better? That's the whole thing. I'm going to mess up. Everybody messes up. Just because you're on the front page of the paper don't mean you're a bad person. Sometimes it means you're a good person. Sometimes it means you're a good person who got caught doing something that may or may not have been something you intended on it working out to be. There you go. Done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Black. At this time, the candidates for sheriff come forward. I'm sure by now every Limestone County knows candidates for sheriff are Mike Blakely and Eric Smith. In the random draw, the 1-minute presentations begins with Sheriff Blakely going first.
Thank you, Dr. Jess. I want to thank the Chamber, the Athens News Courier, Athens University, and the Veterans Museum for the invitation and opportunity to participate in this forum tonight. On November the 4th, we'll be selecting people to serve us in public offices all the way down from the governor to local offices here in Limestone County. For the 9th time, I'm a candidate for sheriff of the county that I love, and I've resided my entire life, except for what time I was on active duty in the Marine Corps, and 2 short years with Department of Public Safety in Connecticut and Madison counties. In 1982, when I was first elected, my oath, my commitment, and my desire to serve has never wavered or diminished. And in 14 days, not that I'm counting, but I need your vote.
Thank you again for coming. Thanks for the chamber and all the ones that put the forum on. I'm Eric Smith. I'm 37 years old. I'm married to my wife, Adrian. Been married to her for 16 years. We have 3 children. Braden is 12, Gavin is 8, and Mackenzie is 4. They keep us busy. Like Mike, I come from the Alabama State Troopers. I'm still a state trooper. I've been with the troopers for 18 years. I've been assigned to Limestone County since '99, and I was born and raised here, and I was gone just a short amount of time when I hired on with the troopers and was sent to South Alabama for about 1.5 years. Like Mike again, November the 4th will be here in 2 weeks. I need your vote come November the 4th. Like he said, this is his 9th time to run for sheriff. This is my 1st. So that's 32 years if you can do the math for him. I believe it's time for a new direction, and that's my foundation for running on. I appreciate your vote come November the 4th.
The first question goes initially to Sheriff Blakely. The issue of methamphetamine manufacturing is a growing concern not just in Limestone County, but across the Tennessee Valley region of North Alabama. The state has enacted laws requiring those who purchase some precursors, including pseudoephedrine, to sign a form purchasing those items. But the problem continues to grow. As sheriff, what will you do to crack down on those who continue to manufacture and sell methamphetamine in Limestone County?
As most of you know, we have, for 32 years, worked very hard on the drug problem. Not just in election year, but in every year. It doesn't take very much for a person to be informed on that, but simply reading the paper or watching the news. That's something that we have done day in and day out. And if you'll notice recently, it seems like we've had a lot more arrests for meth. One reason being is for a long time there, we were down to one narcotics officer because one of them left and went to work at the DA's office. But now we have 3 narcotics officers, thanks to the Limestone County Commission to just recently giving us another employee. Talking with the narcotics officers today, you know, Tennessee just passed a law, makes it where you have to have a prescription to get pseudoephedrine. And that's basically what you have to have making the meth like they're making it today. Of course, the problem we have today is somebody that wants to make it is prohibited from buying it. They just pay somebody $40, $50 to go buy them some more. We are actively arresting people that are going and buying pseudoephedrine that is prohibited from buying. If they've been arrested or convicted, then they're prohibited depending on the exact charge, whether it was manufacture, whether it's possession, whether it's sale. They're prohibited for so many years for even being able to purchase it. Anytime you go to the drugstore, some of you, if you use pseudoephedrine, you wind up having to swipe your driver's license. I've got one officer that has been monitoring everybody that comes to his phone when somebody goes and whoever's going and buying pseudoephedrine now. So if we've got people that's going and buying that's not legally can do it, then we get a warrant, we go arrest them.
Mr. Smith, you have 1 minute.
Okay. That's also, that's the thing I have listed as the biggest threat that I see Limestone County facing over the next few years is a continually growing drug problem. Methamphetamine, like we said, it's a hassle when you go to Walmart if you're legitimately sick and you have a sinus infection and they want to, you can't buy but 1 box of Sudafed or whatever. I know that's a hassle, and that's the sad reality of the world we live in now. One of the ways that I would like to help combat this problem is that, like I said, we have 3 drug officers now that work drug investigators, but now they don't have a drug dog. The Sheriff's Department had a drug dog a couple of years ago. They up and gave the drug dog away. I'm a former drug dog handler, canine handler with the state troopers. I know that the dog is a very valuable resource that can be used to combat the growing drug problem, and not only on the road, but also in your schools. If you have the kids at school can tell you somebody that they know, or somebody that they know that use drugs, or somebody that they know that you can get drugs from, that they're less likely to actually bring those drugs to school if they know that a dog can show up at any point to search those schools.
Thank you. Sheriff Blakely, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to respond.
You really don't need a drug dog working meth because, we're going to get that information when they go buy it at the drugstore, but we have the best of both worlds. We have a drug dog. The prison has a drug dog that we gave them. We don't have to pay for the vet bill. We don't have to pay for recertification all the time. We utilize that drug dog at the schools, at our beck and call anytime we want.
Thank you. The second question goes first to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, please state your opinion on what the role of the sheriff should be in the Limestone County community. Please provide specifics on how you think the sheriff should interact with the citizenry, county employees, and even those who have been charged with a crime.
Okay, the sheriff is first and foremost the administrator over the sheriff's office. He does get out and provide actual law enforcement assistance to the community. He needs to be involved in the community. Go to community events, go talk to your community leaders, your homeowners associations if they have a meeting. You need to go talk to them to see what their issues are that they're facing. Every neighborhood in the county may have a different problem that they're dealing with. It's time to have an open door policy with the people of Limestone County where you can go and talk to these people, form partnerships with the communities and deal with their problems on a case-by-case basis. It's time to form partnerships with the surrounding law enforcement agencies. If you can work together as a law enforcement agency to accomplish a common goal, that's ultimately what we're looking for every day anyway, is to accomplish a common goal. Not to have credit for one person, to have the credit for doing all the work. It's time to work together. And I believe that's part of the, you need to treat people fairly, whether or not because you're innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. If you get arrested, you're brought to jail, you need to be treated fairly. Let the court system decide whether or not you are guilty or not. So treating everybody fairly, regardless of where you come from, regardless if you're a Democrat, regardless if you're a Republican or any other party. It's time to come together and work as one.
1 minute, Sheriff Blakely.
My attitude has and always will be that of a public servant, not a public watchdog. Just last week, I spoke to the local Realtors Association, met with them, providing information to them on realtor safety. 2 weeks ago, we were at a homeowners association where we talked to them about problems in their neighborhood from people breaking into cars. We have a very active neighborhood watch program. We start with any community, any group of people that live anywhere in the county. We also have a seniors and law enforcement together, a senior citizen advisory committee. We also work Friday at one of the schools to put on a program with my narcotics officers to talk to kids about drugs. We're very active in the community, and I think the sheriff must be a leader. He should be able to not expect his people to do anything that he wouldn't do, but the most important thing is being accessible to the people, have an open door policy, which anybody that lives in Limestone County knows. If you ever call the sheriff's office, I'm going to call you back. If you come by to see me, I'm going to see you.
Mr. Smith?
If you're from East Limestone area, you know that Madison PD and Melson Police Department or Madison cities have annexed into Limestone County. Well, those areas need to be patrolled as well. You're not going to see Knoxville PD or Madison PD show up in those neighborhoods, so it's going to fall on the Limestone County Sheriff's Department to respond to those calls more than likely. It's time to get over there as well and talk to those people. They have concerns. They feel like they've been forgotten, because I've actually got out and talked to these people, so they feel like they're being left out. I've made my rounds through subdivisions over there and subdivisions all around the county. Do the same thing.
Thank you. The next question is addressed first to Sheriff Blakely. The Limestone County Jail is currently undergoing a $3.6 million expansion. With the continued growth of Limestone County, population growth in the county, do you believe that expansion will provide adequate space to house inmates? And will you have adequate department personnel for the next decade?
The current construction we have at the jail, and most of you remember when we got the new Limestone County Jail, it's been approximately 12 years ago. I told the commission then that within 5 years we would probably have to add extra single bunk cells. We have plenty of bed space available for inmate population and for growth of inmate population. This addition is solely for single bunk maximum security cells, because many times we have to isolate, whether it be for punitive or medical or people that have an enemies list. The county commission will authorize hiring 6 additional personnel for managing that new addition, and we're very proud of our jail. We've got one of the best run jails in the state of Alabama. It's one of the cleanest jails, and we have a lot of programs that we have there at the jail from the standpoint of GED classes with partner with Calhoun. We have religious programs there in the jail. We have a work release program. We have inmates that go out and do free labor for the community, for Council on Aging, our Veterans Museum, a lot of places. And I don't think you can find a better run jail than we have here in Limestone County.
Trooper Smith?
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, I think the jail is designed to hold, I think it's about 240 people. I think that's about right. And I know the expansion that's taking place is initially giving them room, if I'm not mistaken, to add 50 beds. I think they're doing 25 beds at the beginning, and there's room for 25 more later when needed. And if I made a count this morning, I think I'm close to saying that I think there's 46 jail staff. And when you have 240 inmates ranging from somebody coming in for PI or failure to appear to court to murder, it's going to be the responsibility of the county to make sure that they have enough adequate staffing to make sure that they can control those people in the event something was to arise in the jail. And I'm confident to say that, as me looking in as me as a trooper going into the sheriff's office, I've never seen an issue where it would make me to believe any otherwise. So I believe they have adequate staffing, and especially if they get 5 or 6 more people when the expansion is finished, I believe that should be satisfactory.
Sheriff Blakely?
Actually, our jail has a 287 bed capacity. That's how many beds we have. The only reason for this addition, as I said, our inmate population today was 202 inmates. And rest assured, if we need additional staff, our new chairman coming in will probably see me on his doorstep screaming and hollering, we need more staff. But it's my, as the sheriff and the person that's responsible for running that jail, I also want to make sure we keep it cost effective and try to keep down the cost as much as possible.
Trooper Smith, please give a specific example of how you will improve the Limestone County Sheriff's Office over the next 4 years.
Well, during my career, I've had the opportunity to serve in different capacities throughout with the state troopers. In my opinion, for the sheriff's department, I believe there needs to be more road deputies on the road. As it stands right now, you have 20 deputies. That's including a couple of one admin lieutenant, a couple of patrol lieutenants. You have one that's in the academy and one that works with work release. I think you need more deputies on the roadway patrolling the neighborhoods and businesses. And I think there's a way that you can actually do that without coming out and asking for more money to hire full-time people. I think there's a way that you can do that. But without sitting there and looking at where the money is coming from, I'd like to look at that and see where I can make some changes and put more deputies on the road. And also implement a K-9 program. That's one of the ideas I want to do. I think there's plenty of drugs that travel I-65 and through our county that it justifies us having an interdiction team. There's also lots of drug money that comes through here. You wouldn't think it would come through here, but it does with National and Birmingham. This is just a thoroughfare through that. So those are some of my ideas that I'd like to implement at the sheriff's office and give it the opportunity to serve as your sheriff.
Sheriff Bluntman, 1 minute.
Limestone County Sheriff's Office will continue to do what we've been doing for the last 32 years. We answer all calls, we respond to all reports, and we assist all who need assistance.
If you elect me as your sheriff, I will see to it that we continue answering all calls. There's no reason why we would not continue to do that. 32 years is a long time in that office. So I'll give him credit. He got me started in my law enforcement career. I told him when we started, it's nothing personal. But I believe 32 years is a little bit too long in my opinion, and I will pick up right where he left off and continue working hard for Limestone County, keeping it safe.
Okay, at this time, we'll allow each candidate a 1-minute closing statement. Sheriff Blakely first.
I want to thank all my friends and supporters that came out tonight to show support. If I may, I'd like to give you a few points to chew on. Number one, you got the best sheriff's office in the state of Alabama. Our area is one of the fastest growing areas in the state of Alabama. We now have 113 employees as compared to 23 in 1982. Our law enforcement officers are the most experienced and the best trained. Employees of your sheriff's office here are outfitted and equipped with the most up-to-date state-of-the-art tools and technology that's available, which most of it, or some of it, came at no cost to the taxpayers thanks to the hard work and sacrifices of my employees on our annual rodeo. Finally, let me tell you that my attitude is that of public service, not a public watchdog. As I said, we answer all calls, respond to all reports, and assist all who need assistance. The day I quit doing that, you won't have to vote me out of office. I'll take my tail to the house myself. But between now and then, I'll work ever harder to justify your vote and support, and God bless you. Thanks for being here.
Mr. Smith, 1-minute closing statement, please.
During my career, I've had the honor to serve in several capacities. Like I told you earlier, I've been a K-9 handler where I was tasked with working drug interdiction throughout the state. I've been an instructor at the State Trooper Academy, and I'm also a traffic homicide investigator, field training officer where I've helped train and supervise new troopers. I've been an instructor. In Tennessee, we also instruct Tennessee and Alabama in different drug enforcement activities. During the 18 years, I've had the privilege of working alongside other police agencies, including fire departments and other emergency medical personnel. I have established a great working relationship with this group, and when elected as your sheriff, I will bring all my experiences to this office, and I will continue to work hard for Limestone County. Like it is my home, and I hope you vote for me November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. At this time, the candidates for Senate District 1 come forward. Mr. Curtis, Dr. Melson. At this time, we'll have 1-minute introductions from these candidates, beginning with Mike Curtis.
Thank you. I again want to thank the persons and organizations that sponsored this forum tonight. I appreciate it. I'm Mike Curtis, running for State Senate District 1. I'm married. Janice is here tonight. I've got 2 daughters. One's a teacher, one's a hairstylist, and I've got a son here tonight that just finished playing football for the University of North Alabama. And I'm here tonight to tell you why I'm interested in this position on State Senate 1.
Good evening. I also would like to thank everybody that was organized in this meeting tonight, this forum. It's a great time. I started, the first speech was here in March. I'm not sure, I think that's right. It's great to be back. Every time you come to Athens, you think, what a great town. It's what America's about. It's your square and your Veterans Museum and everything else you have here that makes you a great typical American city. But I also want to give you a brief introduction. I'm anesthesiologist by trade, small business owner that's do phase 2, 3, 4 clinical trials. I'm a farmer, been married to the same lady 34 years, have 3 children, 3 grandchildren, and a 4th one on the way, which I'm excited to be here this next March. I remember the Wood Avenue Church of Christ in Florence, and first time to run for office, but it's been a great experience, and glad to be here.
Thank you. The first question goes to Mr. Curtis first. Mr. Curtis, Alabama State General Fund is the pot of money which funds essentially all state services except for public schools and colleges. A large percentage of this fund goes for prisons and Medicaid programs. Other monies from the fund go for state parks and state troopers. Year after year, after year, after year, after year, after year. In fact, most years in the living memory of everybody in this room, this fund is always short of money. A recent projection indicates this fund will be $160 million in the red at the beginning of next year. What should we do about this persistent general fund problem? Raise revenue? Cut services? What would you do about the general fund problem?
Well, we're at a turning point here in the state of Alabama. And I'm against taxes. And I know my opponent is. And I know we all are against taxes. But we're being cut. And I tell you, looking at, and I'll give you an example. My wife just, she's teaching up in Tennessee. But we've got to come up with innovative ways to fund both education and the general fund budget. Now, up in Tennessee, any child that makes a C average goes to 4-year or 2-year college free off their state lottery. I'm not a lottery player, but the people of Alabama, in a recent poll, 85% says let us vote on it. We've got to come up with ideas. We've got huge corporations in the state of Alabama. If their headquarters is outside the state of Alabama, they pay no state taxes. Now, our mom and pop stores here do. They pay state taxes. We've got to streamline and go in and make the ones that need to pay their fair share pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Melson.
Well, I'm not against taxes. I'm against raising taxes. I think we need to get people to work. I think we need to recruit industry. I think we need to be working with people like Secretary Canfield in our district and find out what industries are a good fit. Meeting with Dr. Lee at Northwest Shows and working with Calhoun to find out what we can do to have a workforce that's ready and recruit these industries to our area. You know, I think that if we had our unemployment down and our tax base increased by people working, we would also decrease their liability of us paying their health insurance, you know, picking up their costs. We need to get them to work, provide them health insurance, and it'll be a win-win. By doing that, I think we need to work with our education system to get them dual enrollment and trained and workforce ready.
Mr. Curtis, 30 seconds response.
We've got a problem here in Alabama, and It's happened over the last 4 years, and so we have got to stand up for Alabama. And we've got to let the public know what we need and what we need to do to bring this state going forward.
The second question goes initially to Dr. Melson. In Alabama, we have a serious prison overcrowding problem. We currently have almost 26,000 inmates housed in facilities designed for 10,000. The United States Supreme Court has recently ruled in a case from California that suggests Alabama cannot have more than 13,000 or 14,000 in its existing facilities. So in Alabama, we can either release prisoners, send fewer folks to prison, or spend a lot of new money on prison facilities and services. Or we can sit idly by and let a federal judge take control of our prison system. What should the legislature do about this unavoidable issue in its next session?
Well, first of all, let me say, personally, I'm glad I have no personal experience on overcrowding in prison. I know that we have to do something. It's a significant part of the general fund budget, along with the Medicaid issue. You know, that's something that we're going to have to look at in a lot of creative ways. I don't know if we need to privatize the prison system. There's other places where we can worry about getting low-risk prisoners out early, but that's going to be a controversial issue. I'm not sure how you would do that. I'd have to work closely with the current penal system to see what the best option on it. Believe me, I don't want to have the federal government come in and tell us how to run our prison. It's a lot more costly and run significantly strain the general fund budget. So I'm willing to listen to the people that are there and work with them to determine what the best plan is. Because I'll be honest, it's something we're going to get the experts in, look at other models in other states, and see what we can do to fix.
Mr. Curtis.
Let's look at a solution. Let's go to our K through 12 high schools. Stats show you 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, if we can get to them right now with programs and that will show their self-worth, that they'll graduate and be able to go on into a career or into college. But stats show that this age group right here can be persuaded. We got to start down there. These guys are already in prison. They're already there. But let's find a solution for my grandchildren's generation, my children's, and let's go into the schools and let's make sure those children are educated about the rights and wrongs, about drug abuse, about...
Dr. Melson, 30 seconds.
Well, I agree that, you know, if you keep children in school, you give them extracurricular activity and functions like that, they're a lot less likely to get involved with gangs and other activities. So if you continue them in the education path, they're a lot less likely to result in crime. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Next question goes first to Mr. Curtis. Mr. Curtis, increasingly middle-class folks around America are voicing frustration about the high cost of higher education in the United States. In recent years, it has been common for tuitions at public colleges and universities to increase at a rate that was 2 or 3 times the rate of inflation. Should the decisions about tuition remain exclusively with university boards and trustees? Or is it time for the legislature to get involved in this middle-class issue?
I think it's time for the legislature. As I mentioned a while ago, if the lottery is earmarked the way it should be, which would go to our C-average students in high school, that they're able to go to a 2-year, 4-year college free, that is a plus for this state. The governor of Tennessee said about 2 months ago, I'd like to thank the people of Alabama for sending our Tennessee kids to college free. Thank you.
Well, as far as education goes, in the middle class, I think that there should probably be some involvement with the legislature, but I think the universities, should be left up alone. We can look at the enrollment around the state and consider it. But I think that right now, I don't know any personal people that are struggling with it. I'm sure they are. They have to get loans and other things and grants, and I'm sure that it's a struggle. But I don't know enough to say we've got to get involved and have legislature control that. But however, lottery, I'm personally against lottery. However, I'd be willing to let the people vote and determine if we get a lottery or not.
Mr. Curtis, 30
Yeah.
seconds for a response.
I agree with Tim. I'm against it. You won't see me playing it. If I do, I'm Church of Christ, and I have to go up on Sunday. So, anyway, I think we need to let the people vote. I really do. I think it's time to let the people vote on it. And the legislature, we need to let the people vote on issues. So I'm all for that.
Thank you.
Hey, can I say one thing? If I win, I'll give my 10% to the church.
I'll go 15.
The last question goes to Dr. Melson first. Alabama's young people are among the most obese in the Western world. Our young folks, viewed collectively, are the fattest of any generation in recorded history. You can look at all the public health records as long as we've had them. Unless altered, the long-term consequence of this will be higher medical costs, a rapidly rising rate in type 2 diabetes, disabilities at a younger age, and reduced productivity and profits for every business in this county and elsewhere. Does the state government have a role to play in combating this problem of youth obesity? And if so, what is the state's role? Dr. Melson?
I think we need to be involved in doing education toward, a healthy lifestyle at an early age. I think we got a problem with, you never see pickup ball games in neighborhoods anymore, going out and playing football, baseball, basketball like we were kids. You're afraid to let children ride bikes because you don't know if they're going to get hit by a car or picked up by a stranger. The world's changing, so we got to create new ways for children to be able to do the healthy things. I'll just tell you, I don't think Michelle Obama's answer is correct. I'm hearing nothing but complaints of local schools. Was at Ardmore today, and you look in the vending machines, the principal said they sell maybe $200 worth of bins the whole last 2 months, and everything's got aspartame in it, and we don't know the health consequences of that. So there's a lot of things that we need to educate people, but I don't think the government necessarily needs to step in, state or federal, and tell us how to feed our kids and educate our kids. I think we need to have them involved in like, work centers or healthcare conferences and talk to the students and maybe the educator boards and work with them to educate them. But I don't think we need to legislate the healthy foods like if that's what you're insinuating. So.
Mr. Curtis?
I agree with my opponent. I don't think we need the state or federal coming in on how we feed our children. Again, we go back to education, and we go back to our K through 12 in our schools, and let's teach them the proper ways of nutrition, and I think we'll be better off in the long run.
Dr. Melson, 30-second response.
Sure. Well, like I say, we need to just be involved, educate them, encourage activities, quit buying a new PlayStation every time it comes out, or an Xbox, and encourage them a healthy lifestyle. Get them out and take them to the park instead of taking them to the movie theater. Things just make sense like that. So.
Okay, 1 minute closing statements. Mr. Curtis, you're first.
Well, again, I'd like to thank you. I'm Mike Curtis. I'll tell you right now, I'm a Christian Democrat. I'm running for the State Senate District 1. My platform, term limits, I'm only candidate in the state. My first pre-filed bill will be term limits. I think 3 terms will get you enough time that you can get some things done. I know 1 term doesn't. You just get really around where you can really go and get the information in and learn the system after 1 term. but that'll be my first pre-filed bill. We'll see who co-sponsors, who signs it. If they don't, if we can't get it out of committee and brought up on the floor, I'll do it by example. I'll serve 3 terms at your will, and then I'm out. I've got the experience as a former legislator, but I also I worked with David Brunner, who I consider the #1 industrial recruiter. Sandy, if you hit that one more time. Anyway, I worked with him, and we brought in North American Lighting, the tissue plant over there, so thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Melson.
Well, I want to thank you all again for having us tonight. I hope you'll do your own research, determine who fits your needs and your beliefs, and who is the best candidate for you, and get out and vote that day. I do think I represent a good broad base. I've got Business Council of Alabama, NFIB's endorsement. The first one I got was Alabama Farmers Association. I got the Forestry Association, Home Builders Association, Realtors Association. I picked up a lot of endorsements. There'll be more coming out lately. If you look across the broad base of endorsements I've received, you'll see there's a lot of good employers, people that worry about jobs, worry about education, and worry about things that I think are most important to the general average person in the district. So anyway, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you again for having us.
Let's give Mr. Curtis an opportunity. At this time, the candidates for House District 5 come forward.
The only bad thing about that is we have 4 of them live in Arizona, so we don't get to see the grandchildren. Well, of course, we got to see our daughter and son-in-law too. We really miss our grandchildren who go out there, that live out there, but we get to see them about twice a year. And of course, I'm a retired educator. I spent 37 years in education. I was a teacher, coach, principal, assistant principal, and also the hardest job I ever did, even including being a representative on the city council, was being the county superintendent. That was a very difficult job. We had probation, we didn't have money to do things, but anyway, that's a very difficult job. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question goes to Dan Williams. 15 years ago, the people of Alabama voted on the lottery. It was rejected. 54% voted against it, and 46% voted for it. Are you for or against allowing another referendum on the state lottery? And if the lottery was approved, how would you spend the estimated $80 million to $200 million a year it would generate?
How much time is it?
You have 2 minutes.
I'm not a real proponent of an educational lottery, but I don't mind the people voting on the lottery for the state of Alabama if they know what they're voting on. A constitutional amendment needs to be clear to the people. And I will never support legislation that just puts a lottery up and then Harrods of New Orleans or someone from Las Vegas comes in and runs it for the state of Alabama and skims the money off the top. That's what happens in a lot of these states. If the state of Alabama votes on having the lottery, I want the language to say that the state of Alabama gets every penny from the lottery. And I don't think that if we do have a lottery, I don't think the money needs to go to higher education. The money needs to go to K through 12, where the big problems are. We've already heard questions that higher education, they can raise their tuition rates anytime they want to. K through 12 is what the state of Alabama legislature and the State Department of Education doles out to them. So my wish is if we vote in a lottery, it all goes to K through 12. And what's the other part of the question?
You pretty much addressed it. How would you spend the proceeds? It's the 80 to 200 million.
Well, that's the way I would spend it. There's questions about if you give the lottery money to education, what about the current taxes that are going into education? That'd be an opportunity for the legislature to drag that tax money back out of education and put it to the general fund or whatever. So that's some thing you have to consider when you're talking about a lottery. But
Thank you. Mr. White, 1 minute.
Well, having been down there 4 years ago, the lottery issue was a big issue, and things came out of that wasn't very nice, but I agree with Dan on that. It we put out there to the people to vote on. But let me say this, if they depended on me to keep the lottery funded, just like the liquor stores, all of them go out of business, because I don't gamble. My money is too hard to come by, and I don't drink, so anyway, from that standpoint, I would have to, like Dan said, it would have to be really written really well to make sure that the funding did go to education and give the people opportunity to vote on. Because as long as we are here, and that thing's been around for years after years after years, that let's have a lottery. So one thing we put to bed to let it rest is the fact that we vote on it, people vote on it, then let's do it and go on with some other business.
Mr. Williams, 30 seconds.
one thing I think we probably need to consider, and I know it's a hard thought, but to fund more of our education with property taxes, which is much more stable than the sales tax situation we have now. If we fund our education with the lottery and gambling money, then in the good times you're going to be flush, in the bad times the bottom drops out, and you don't have time to put new taxes and things in. So we need to be very careful about considering the lottery for our education.
Thank you. The second question goes first to Mr. White. It's a repeater, as we called it in our planning session. Alabama State General Fund is the pot of money which funds all those state services except education. A large portion of it goes to prisons and Medicaid. Other parts go to state parks and state troopers. Year after year, the fund is short of money. A recent projection suggests the fund will be $160 million short next year. What would you do about this persistent problem involving the general fund? Raise revenue? Cut services? What would you do about this problem?
That's my question, right?
Yes, Mr. White, you get 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. You mind repeating? I'm kidding. No, we need to liven up a little bit. This is America, and democracy is best. So anyway, but really, 4 years ago, I was on the prison committee and going in to some of the prisons. At any given time, the prison can be overtaken by the prisoners because of one thing, there's not enough guards in there. And, of course, you don't have the weapons in there. So I visited Limestone and one down there. But I think if the corporations, 4 years ago, and it's probably more than that now, over 1,000 corporations do not pay their fair share of taxes. As Mr. Curtis mentioned a while ago, If we get the money from that, that would be a long way to go. And then I mentioned earlier too, that we look at some early release, excuse me, early release possibilities for prisoners who are maybe non-violent, but do some rehabilitation in there more so than what we do today. I know years ago you used to see prisoners, well, even when I was at Greer Elementary, we had prisoners that came out that were very skilled in a lot of areas. We need to use those folks in various communities or various activities in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
The general fund, I would say it may even be $200 million in the hole to start with this year. I think it's a situation, as Mike Curtis said, you know, are you going to raise taxes, or, you know, you got to get these money to carry on these services. I think the legislature, the governor, should take the lead in this, deciding what services do we want in the state of Alabama. We're not going to be able to keep the services at the level that we have. And we've already in the past 4 years cut a lot of services out, or cut the number of people who are working in those services out. So we've got to set a priority. What services do we want? What money do we have to pay for those services? And that'll be it. Push everything back down to the local level. What people want, they'll have to get it. The state's not going to be able to provide everything with the money we've got.
Thank you. Mr. White, 30 seconds.
You know, it was mentioned earlier too that as far as the number of prison beds are concerned, we talked about the general fund, there's money going for that. In third grade testing, it determines the number of prison beds that we have to have in the future. So, as it's been mentioned before, we've got to do a better job in education. We've got to reach those folks early, because by the time a person goes into prison from, say, 20 years old to they die at the age of 72 is a male, and then that's really the next millionaire. They are millionaires. We spend that much money on those folks in the prisons. Thank you, Sandy.
The next question goes first to Mr. Williams. What is the biggest problem facing the next generation of Alabamians that probably isn't getting enough attention by press and politicians today? Biggest problem facing Alabamians that's just not getting enough attention today.
How much time?
2 minutes.
I think one of the big problems, you know, we talk about education so much. I think it's the areas of the state where education is so low, and children are not getting a good education, as we would call it here in North Alabama. You know, North Alabama, to me, is almost like a separate state from other parts of the state of Alabama, especially down in the west and the south, where we see generally a good progression of education, industry, and everything across North Alabama. When you go throughout the state and get below Birmingham down there, it's more or less pockets. And we have so many counties in the state of Alabama that some of them don't have a 10,000 population. And they're having to run a school system, they're having to do their law enforcement and things like that, and they don't have a tax base. So something's going to have to be done to education of those people. I think that's one of the worst things that our state has, is we've got areas where people are doing real well in that, and then you have children who never have a chance. They're never going to have a chance. And we got to break that cycle that kids that are in these counties like Wilcox County, Perry County, those things will have the same opportunity that our children have here in North Alabama.
Thank you. Mr. White, 1 minute.
Well, as someone mentioned earlier too, and I think it was you, that we have a very obese population in the state with our children. That's one area for me that we need to look at. And again, I think by doing our job in education, we can hope to take care of that, because having been a physical education teacher, we've got to stress more of physical education, not only in the classroom, but once they get home, extracurricular activities for our children. We just can't let them sit up in the couch like be a couch potato. Put them out there and let them get busy, you know. Let them do some activities in the community that's worthwhile, where they can exercise. I have 2 grandchildren, and they almost wear me out. We've got a 6-year-old grandchild and a 10-year-old. They don't, or no, excuse me, 8-year-old. They do not like to stay inside. And so, you know, I'm gonna accommodate them. I'm gonna go out there with them. I'm gonna play with those guys, or my grandson and granddaughter, as long as I can. You know, if it's getting in the mud with them, or whatever it might be, I'm gonna do that. But we've got to do more in our education system to take care, as Dan said. We've got to educate all our folks, just not a select few.
Mr. Williams, 30 seconds.
Well, I don't ever want to put education and our teachers and principals and people like that in the role of taking care of everything. You know, educators are there to teach. We don't let them teach a whole lot. I think you talk to anybody that's been in the school system for a long period of time, and they don't get a lot of time to actually teach. I think that's why you have such a proliferation of private schools and homeschool, is that people can educate their children. Well, it's not the duty of those teachers to do everything for the child. It's just, they can't do it.
Thank you. The final question goes first to Mr. White. Of the 50 states, only 3 states have lower taxes on cigarettes than Alabama. We currently levy a tax of 42.5 cents per pack of 20 cigarettes. That's approximately 20 cents a pack lower than the states which have substantial tobacco production. It's approximately $1 a pack less than the national average currently. Would you support an increase in the tobacco tax if the money was earmarked for that general fund? Mr. White, 2 minutes.
Oh, yes, I would. You know, the thing about that is, I think people said, well, when cigarettes go up to $1 a pack, $1.50 a pack, they wouldn't buy. Just like we said, you know, if gas went up over $2 a gallon, we would stop driving, we're still driving, people were still smoking. And so I would have no problem with that. I mean, if you look at all the other avenues to try to come up with some type of funding, but whether, you know, again, it can be done. I think there's been increases on some other things statewide, you know, on some taxes and licenses and things like that. So, again, I would have no problem with that right there. I'm a non-smoker, and but I know these folks who do smoke, and some of you may here may smoke. But on the other hand, you know, it would go for a good cause, you know. So, yes, I would.
Mr. Williams.
I'd be reluctant to vote for a cigarette tax because it's singling out a particular segment of the population to tax. And from what I understand with statistics that I've seen lately, there's fewer and fewer people smoking. So, you know, if you put a tax on, you're going to put a tax on a smaller part of the population to do services for the rest. Then again, you may want to look at it as well. These the sin taxes, we call them, they're helping to take care of people who get lung cancer and things like that from smoking, or the alcoholics who drink too much whiskey. So, but I would be very reluctant. I just have to be convinced there's no other way to do it to vote for a cigarette tax.
Mr. White, 30 seconds.
You know, having been here 4 years ago and looked at things in the past, I think we've looked at other ways, and I don't know if there's another way to do it. We haven't come up with anything yet, and we've always talked about coming up with something, we haven't yet. So, again, anytime you tax, I know, you know, we keep saying our taxes are lower. My taxes have not been lower. My only thing, again, like the property tax, if your property taxes go up, it means the value of your property goes up. So I don't have no problem paying that. But again, if the tax was earmarked for specific things you mentioned, that would be fine.
At this time, we move to closing statements, and 1 minute, Mr. Williams.
I support public education. I voted for a 2% pay increase for all full-time teachers and support personnel in 2013. I voted to fully fund PF for teachers and the retired teachers and support personnel. I voted to increase appropriations to the Education Retirement Fund. I voted to give statutory liability coverage to all education employees. I voted to increase classroom supply funding and increase the number of middle school teachers in the state. Our budgets have eliminated proration of our public school systems in the past 4 years, and I've secured over $200,000 in discretionary funding for the Athens in Limestone County school systems.
Mr. White?
Well, I too support public education, haven't been an educator, but let me go back and give you a little statistics that we have too. To balance the education or the general fund budget or whatever, there's been a loss of some 8,000 public education personnel, and that includes teachers, so we can't afford to lose any more of those. K through 12 public school funding has been cut 18.7%, more than even state of the union. Pupil per expenditures have been cut 21.7%. And then as a result of the accountability, Athens City has lost in 1 year alone. Now I want you to get this, 1 year alone, $172,042. Limestone County has lost $487,427 for a total of $659,469. And that's gone to private schools, which I have no issue with private schools, they want to be, but we don't need our public funds to go educate our kids here in Limestone County and throughout the state to go to a private school. That's their choice. If they want to go to a private school, they can go there. So we say we've done this, but you look at the statistics and things, we've lost more teachers and more folks in education than any time before. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give Mr. Williams and Mr. White. At this time, will candidates for House District 2 come forward? Mr. Greer and Mr. Betterton. One-minute introduction, gentlemen, and we start with Mr. Greer.
Thank you. I'm Lynn Greer. I live in Rogersville. I have lived in Athens in the past. I'm a graduate of Lauderdale County High School in Rogersville and a graduate of Auburn University with a degree in electrical engineering. I spent quite a few years in the space program in Huntsville and Cape Kennedy. And for the last 20-something years, I've been a general contractor in Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and a home builder. And I have built homes in Limestone County, developed one subdivision. I have a wife, and we have 4 kids and 10 grandchildren. 3 of the grandchildren are in the Huntsville City system, 5 are in the Lauderdale County system, all go to school in Rogersville. I have a grandson who's a sophomore at Alabama, and a granddaughter who is a freshman at North Alabama. In Montgomery, I am chairman of the Transportation Committee. I also serve on the General Fund Committee that we're hearing so much about tonight. I'm chairman of the Tennessee Valley Caucus, and also serve on the Rules Committee that determines what's brought up for a vote.
Thank you. Mr. Betterton.
I'm certainly glad to be with you this evening. I was a bit tardy. We had a Florence City Council meeting this evening, but I found this place very quickly, and I'm glad to be here with you tonight. I am Andy Betterton. I am a Florence City Councilman in my 2nd term. I served on the Florence City Board of Education for 2 terms and earned the Master Board Member certificate through the Alabama Association of School Boards. For the last 30 years, I've been a management accountant, and for the last 28, I've served as the Chief Financial Officer for a regional electric company, SBS Electric Supply in Florence. I'm delighted to be a graduate of the University of North Alabama. I've got my BS in music education and accounting and my master's in education. My wife Sandra is a retired teacher. We have 3 children and 5 grandchildren.
Thank you. The first question goes to Mr. Greer. Mr. Greer, it's the general fund question. Alabama State General Fund is that pot of money we fund all those state services except for our schools and colleges. A lot of it goes for prisons and Medicaid, other monies for parks and state troopers. Year after year, the fund is growing. Recent projections suggest it's going to be $160 million short next year. What do we do about this recurring, persistent general fund problem? Raise revenue, cut services. What should we do, gentlemen?
We have, under the leadership of Governor Bentley, we've been able to reduce the expenditures in state government, over $1 billion. Now, this has got to phase in. It didn't all happen this year. Let me give you an example. We had several divisions or several different departments, agencies in Montgomery that all had law enforcement. And we're bringing all those together. Why do you have law enforcement under 6 or 8 or 10 different agencies when they do basically the same thing? When you got them under all the different agencies, you got to have different bosses. So that's an expense that we're going to be able to cut. Another thing is we're looking at some issues. I know it's been mentioned the lottery here before. I'm the one who's willing to let the people vote on the lottery. I don't gamble, but I think anybody who grew up in Cottonville like I would wouldn't be gambling their money away. But if other people want to do it and they want to vote in favor of it, and we can come up with a system that is fair to every citizen in this state, I would support letting the people vote on it. But as far as the other issues, we've got problems with the general fund. We had to borrow about $445 million a couple of years ago just to fund Medicaid. And Medicaid and the prisons and retirement and those things are just destroying the general fund. But every group I talk to, it'd be difficult here tonight, but I asked them what taxes would they support. I haven't found any. Someday something's going to have to happen in this state. You can't get blood out of the turnip. That's what we're trying to do today.
Mr. Betterton.
Well, certainly Mr. Greer is correct. We have some huge issues, and I certainly am not here with easy solutions to those problems. Obviously, continued belt tightening, creative revenue decisions need to be made. But let me just point out one. You pointed out the prison system. In the state of Alabama, when I was on the Florence City Board of Education, we spent approximately $5,500 per student from the state to educate a child. At the same time, we spent $55,000 per youth that we adjudicated through the juvenile justice system. Obviously, we need to do something about our prison system, and I think by better spending our money, keeps those folks out of the prison system, reduces the cost of the prison system, and that's only one way that we can make a difference there.
Thank you. Mr. Greer, 30-second follow-up.
Well, here again, like I say, we're looking at several issues. And we have, if we keep hearing about loopholes, and we got loopholes, we want to close them, but we want to close them all now. What we run into, one group over here says, let's close loopholes, and you suggest one. Oh, no. Let's don't close that one, that affects me. But the only way we're going to work anything out in Montgomery, if we increase taxes, it's going to have to hit everybody. And we can't just pick and choose. And I agree with the statement while ago on cigarette tax. Can't increase the tax on liquor because we've got about the highest in the nation. And when that goes up, people go across the state line. And the same thing would happen on cigarettes. But we've got problems that we're looking at, and I don't have time in 30 seconds, but maybe I'll get to answer them a little later.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Second question goes to Mr. Betterton. Mr. Betterton, in Alabama, we have a serious prison overcrowding problem. 26,000 inmates in facilities for 10,000. It's an unavoidable issue. Right now, we basically have twice the number of folks in our prisons that the United States Supreme Court is probably going to allow us to keep in our current facilities. Do we release prisoners? Send fewer folks to prison? Spend a lot of money on new prisons? Or just risk losing control of the prison system to the federal courts? What should the legislature do about this prison issue?
Obviously, alternative sentencing is one approach that we'll take. Second approach that I think is working in some ways across our state, and I'm certainly proud of Lauderdale County in particular. I'm not sure about Limestone. I think that's true in a number of counties. But I've been participating in the graduations at drug court. This is some creative ways that we keep people out of our prison system. And I think it's a way that we can we can spend more opportunities and keep the costs down and keep the number of prisoners in our prison systems down. Also, education. We need to nip the problems in the bud before they become problems. I think Mr. White spoke about determining the number of prison beds we need at the third grade reading level. No child should get to the third grade without reading on the reading level. We need to do everything we can to encourage our education system so we can stop that before we ever have a drug, alcohol, or criminal problem that leads to imprisonment.
Mr. Greer, 1 minute.
I agree with those issues too. And you know, and meth was mentioned by one of the sheriff's candidates, and it's destroying this state. The main problem we have starts at home. Now, we can either face it or not, but the problems with the prison system start at home. Until you get parents that are willing to educate their kids, train their kids, and teach them to do right, we're not going to solve. The taxpayer's not going to solve everybody's problems. Now, this year alone, I handled 3 bills for the District Attorney Association pertaining to law enforcement. I handled 1 bill for the Department of Corrections. We can't just start letting people out, because y'all all see just this past week, just look what happened by people who got out of prison early. You can't start letting them out, and I think the day has come in Alabama when we're going to have to build some new prisons. We can either face it or not. And most people that I talk to say, I'd support a tax for prisons before I would anything else. So if you start letting people out, letting criminals out, you got a problem.
Mr. Betterton, 30 seconds.
Well, I think we have to start from the very, very beginning. I recently had a kindergarten teacher who told me she had a whole classroom of children in a 95% free and reduced school system, or school, and almost all of her children came to school without ever being read to, no books in their homes, not knowing their colors, not knowing their numbers. Those children are ones we need to attempt to address before they ever get to a level where they become criminals.
Thank you. This next question goes first to Mr. Greer. Mr. Greer, in the state of Alabama, should a person with a concealed carry permit issued by a sheriff be able to take that firearm onto the private property of a business like Walmart, Red Lobster restaurant, without the consent of the business owner? Or should state law permit the owner of the business to control who can bring the firearm onto his or her property?
Well, I think under certain situations, you've got businesses where you would not want a firearm. But as far as someone carrying a pistol, a hidden pistol in the Walmart or Kmart, anywhere like that, you know, the law provides for that. And I think it's the rights of all the citizens. Here again, I've seen the problem, and we got to go back and address the law. I don't think you ought to carry one into a voting place, and that's been a problem, I think, down in Shelby County with the Sheriff's Department and a citizen. But at the same time, if we're going to have firearms, we can't just tell you got to go put it back in your car when you go in a certain store, and you put it back in your pocket when you go into another store.
Thank you. Mr. Betterton, 1 minute.
Obviously, this is a tough issue and a very touchy issue. I certainly defend a person's right to bear arms. It's a constitutional right that we all should defend. It also should give a person the right to not carry a gun if they choose to. I guess my only issue with carrying it in a business, concealed in a business, is not the owner, not the one that's taking care of that. It's what happens if that gun is taken away from that person and then used against me or my family or owners of business. I think it's a real issue that we need to think about. I know some folks say, well, I ought to be able to take my gun into the voting place. For God's sake, why? Why would we do that? Why would we need to do that? So I think that's a real slippery slope I would want to be very careful of.
Thank you. Mr. Greer?
Well, you can point out like some of the raping and the mugging and the thugging and so forth going on in the shopping center parking lots. If you had a lady who had a gun and she just happened to have it handy when some criminal approached her, she could handle the situation, and then we wouldn't have another criminal problem.
The final question goes first to Mr. Betterton. Mr. Betterton, what's the biggest problem facing the next generation of Alabamians that hasn't gotten enough attention by the press and politicians of our state?
Huge, big issue. I can point out one. I'm not sure it's the biggest, but it's very concerning for me, for someone of my age, a baby boomer. And when I realized that jobs today that when children start school today, the jobs they'll be looking for don't exist today. They'll be planning for the future. My issue in particular is student debt. If you'll look, we talked about the cost of going to college, the cost of education, and it may seem very petty in a long ways, but student debt, many students are graduating from junior college or college with debt they'll never be able to overcome. And I just believe with the education lottery and those kind of things, we can help students go to school, be prepared either as career technical or through academics, and we can allow them to finish that debt-free. Debt-free. Give them a boost to move forward in their lives. And I think for me, is if we want to really prepare a educated workforce, we need to do everything we can to give those students a hands up, ready to go, and being debt-free would certainly be a great start.
Dr. Brown, I'm sorry, but I missed the first part of the question.
I'm sorry, what is the biggest problem facing the next generation of Alabamians that probably isn't getting enough attention by the press and politicians today?
Well, I don't know. I guess the biggest problem that I see in Alabama is jobs right now. If we could create the jobs, we would have a general fund budget that was properly funded. We'd have an education budget that's properly funded. But let me tell you people one thing. We're no longer competitive. Now, I checked this afternoon in Montgomery, Alabama. I was down there. There are two prime industries we're looking in Limestone County. We can't attract them because, first of all, when you get a business today, you got to have an incentive program. We don't have one. Our bucket is empty. And last year, we passed a law in the House that created an incentive program. It died in the Senate. Now, until we're willing to do something and refund and build their incentive program back, we're not going to get anything. Y'all just have one of the largest tire manufacturers in the can't come into the country look at Limestone County. They're gone. Now, I think the first thing Governor Bentley needs to do after the November 4th election, regardless of who's elected, he needs to call somebody in Montgomery and let's come up with an incentive program where we can attract jobs, industry to this state so we can be competitive with the other southern states.
Thank you, Mr. Betterton.
Several years ago when I was a school board member, and I'm sure some of you remember it and probably glad it's gone, we talked about no child left behind. Well, I'm afraid today we're talking about just which children are we leaving behind. I'm here to tell you today, if we want this state to grow, we need to do everything we can to make sure public education flourishes in this state. Public education is the very fiber of our country. It's what has made us great.
Thank you. At this time, we move to closing statements for these candidates, and Mr. Betterton, you go first. 1 minute.
Okay. I guess my response to you tonight, my gratitude to you tonight is that I'm coming into your county after living in Lauderdale County, and my district's going to move into your area, just the western part. And I can just tell you, as I run toward the election, I'm going to do everything I can to continue to be a part of a greater community and want to be engaged. And as I reach out, I'm glad to answer calls and respond to you as best I can. But I'd like to say to you tonight, the one thing you can do for your state and your country is celebrate being an American, celebrate being an Alabamian. Go out and vote. Do your duty, do your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Greer.
Thank you. I live close to Limestone County. I used to live here, as I said before. I live right now half a mile beyond the end of the River Bridge in Athens real often. I co-sponsored the bill in 1975 or 76. It brought this university under the state system. Representative Tommy Carter was a sponsor, and if you look, there's probably only one co-sponsor on there, but nobody was heavy but Lynn Greer. I also passed in 77 and 78, took 2 years to do it, the TVA in lieu of tax bill. Now that has brought Limestone County since 1980 over $150 million. The last 4 years, it averaged over $8 million a year. And the law that I wrote said each county decided how they disperse that money. In this county, you put it in schools, you put it, the county gets some, the cities get some, and it's a good means. First of all, it's our money, because when you pay your power bill every month, 5% right off the top goes into this TVA into the tax box. And the general fund in Montgomery has struggled ever since we passed that law, but here again, 16 counties in Alabama should not be funding the whole state of Alabama, and that's basically what we were doing before that law passed.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's give Mr. Betterton and Mr. Greer. At this time, will candidates for Congressional District Seat 5, Mr. Mark Bray and Congressman Mo Brooks, please come forward. Gentlemen, we'll start with 1-minute introductions, and Mr. Bray, you go first.
I'm Mark Bray. I'm running as an independent for the 5th District of Alabama here in the north part of the state. I'm 39 years old. I have a wife and 3 beautiful children who are here with me tonight. This is my first time running for office. I was born and raised in Florida, and in my backyard I got to watch space shuttles launch just about every time they went up. And that inspired me to be a part of NASA's space program as a contractor. I've spent 20 years working for a fabulous team in various different companies, and I'm very proud of my service there. But I've decided to run for office because the two-party system in Washington, D.C. is broken. We're stuck in gridlock, and it's time that we send somebody up there who knows how to solve problems. There are only 11 engineers and scientists in Congress, and far too many attorneys and career politicians who aren't getting things done, and I want to serve this district well and start solving the problems that we face.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Jess. In 2010, when I ran for the United States Congress, we had nobody on the House Armed Services Committee or the Science, Space, and Technology Committee overseeing 36,000 defense and space-related jobs, and tens of thousands of jobs that are affiliated with those 36,000 jobs. So I made it a priority to get on Armed Services and was successful in doing that. Made it a priority to get on Science, Space, and Technology Committee, was successful in doing that. I'm in the position of co-chairman of the Space Committee. And so all of those things enable me, with growing seniority, to protect 36,000 jobs and tens of thousands of cascading jobs that are associated with those. My number one reason for running for Congress, though, is to protect our country from insolvency and bankruptcy. $1.4 trillion deficit before I was there. Now we're down to $500 billion, still too much, but moving in the right direction. With your support, I'll continue to fight for the progress and ideals that we believe in Alabama.
Thank you. The first question goes initially to Mr. Bray. In January of 2015, the first major action of the new Congress will be the election of a Speaker of the House. Do you think Speaker Boehner has been effective? And should he be returned to that office? And if not, who among Republican or Democrat Party leaders would be your choice for Speaker?
I actually think that's a difficult question to answer, because it does matter the turnout of the elections that we're currently undergoing. There may be some good representatives who are elected or re-elected, and some of the choices that I might have in mind may not survive their election. So I think it's a little bit unfair to try to project what type of leader. Now, what I'd like to say is that I'm looking for the type of person that I would select. And I'm not going to speak to Boehner's effectiveness. He's a member of the Republican Party, and he's a member of the Republican caucus, and I'm specifically running as an independent. So in terms of his effectiveness, I think the Republican Party should choose that. The type of person I think that ought to be a Speaker of the House is someone who understands the bigger picture of the nation's problems, someone who actually looks for solutions and brings those bills to fruition, and can work with even the opposite party over in the Senate to prioritize what the bills are that need to be coming forward. And in that regard, what we need is bipartisanship and cooperation rather than what we have today.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks.
I can say here and now that I'm going to vote for the individual who I believe best represents the values and principles of the Tennessee Valley. It may be John Boehner, it may be somebody else, but I'll promise you this, with clarity, it is not Nancy Pelosi. There is no chance in the world that I'm going to vote to reinstate Nancy Pelosi as House Speaker. And I think that's very important that you get that kind of commitment from the person who hopefully will be your next congressman and continue the role that I've been in. Let me be clear about this for a moment. You all saw what happened in 2009 and 2010 with Obamacare and the damage that that's done to our health care. You haven't seen anything yet if she gets back into power. Cap and trade, your utility bills, when it's all said and done, go up over $100 per month on average. And that doesn't count the impact on our businesses and our jobs and employment here in the Tennessee Valley.
Mr. Bray, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I don't even need that long, but I was asked that question if for some reason the House were divided exactly 217 to 217 and my vote became the tie-breaking vote and the Democrats put Nancy Pelosi up for the Speaker position, I would not vote for Nancy Pelosi either.
Thank you. Second question goes first to Congressman Brooks. Major business leaders and even the retired chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff have indicated that the greatest threat to the national security of the United States is not Al-Qaeda, it's not ISIS, it's not the Russians. It's the accumulation of debt by the national government over the last 50 years. Year after year, our national government simply spends more than it collects in revenue. And we pile debt on top of debt as each party blames the other for the problem. What do you think would be a realistic first step in building a bipartisan solution to this very serious national problem? And would you be willing to cut federal spending by 10% in your district if all other members would agree to the same across-the-board spending reduction?
I'm supposed to answer all that in 2 minutes, right, Jeff? Well, as I mentioned, we've made strides in the right direction on our deficit and debt, and I agree with those individuals who have described it as the greatest threat, because to the extent we border on insolvency or bankruptcy as a nation, that's going to affect our military capabilities, and that's what these military leaders are talking about. I will say that as your congressman, I was instrumental in helping to force, and this is what we need, a balanced budget constitutional amendment vote. Now, the next step after getting that vote is to get it passed. On my side of the aisle, we were able to get 98% of my colleagues in support of a balanced budget constitutional amendment that would force us to resolve this long term so that we don't play with this insolvency and bankruptcy that could do so much damage to our country. In terms of the best solution, far and away the best solution is to promulgate economic policies, free enterprise-based policies that will create economic prosperity. And with that economic prosperity, 2 good things happen. One, you have a rise in revenues, not only at the federal level, but also at the city, county, and state level. And you heard all the issues associated with funding at the city, county, and state level. This takes care of that. But in addition, to the extent we have that kind of prosperity, what it does is it decreases the consumption, particularly the wealth transfer programs right now that are consuming over $750 billion a year. That's not Social Security and Medicare, which are earned entitlements. I'm talking about the wealth transfer programs, means tested, where because you exist, you meet these criteria A, B, C, you get the money X, Y, and Z. So there are some things that we can cut, but it has to be prioritized. It can't be across the board. It certainly can't be like the Budget Control Act of 2011 that disproportionately attacked national defense, the #1 priority of the federal government. I voted against that. Here's why. National defense took 65% of the cut, give or take a few points, when it's only about 15, 16% of total federal government spending. That kind of disproportionate hit is inappropriate.
Mr. Bray, 1 minute.
I appreciate the Congressman's answer, and I appreciate that he's taking credit for reducing the deficit, but the reality is the deficit was reduced because personal income taxes have actually rose. Revenues to the Treasury have gone from $800 billion to $1.3 trillion in personal income tax revenue, and so it's the American people who are paying off that deficit, not by reducing expenditures. That being said, we live in a Keynesian economy. You may not like the model, but that's the model we have. We need a monetary system change, and we need a long-term vision for how we get out of it. It was not the tax code, it was not excessive spending that created the 2008 market crash or the 1989 S&L crisis. We're headed for another bubble now. Another Wall Street bubble is growing, and as soon as that happens, we're going to need deficit spending again. It's the model we're in. I'm not a fan of it, but we need somebody in Congress who's actually talking about the root causes of our economic ups and downs and willing to put forward a plan to solve it.
Mr. Brooks, 30-second rebuttal.
Sure. There are groups out there that look at an individual's record, determine how financially responsible he is. Look at the Taxpayers Union, look at the Conservative Union, pick any group you want. Mo Brooks is right up there, #1 in the Alabama congressional delegation.
Thank you. The next question goes first to Mr. Bray. Mr. Bray, NASA and its contractors employ a lot of folks in the Tennessee Valley area of North Alabama. What do you think is the long-term future of NASA as a government agency? As more and more private businesses get involved more and more with space exploration, human space exploration, will there be less and less of a need for NASA as we have known it in the last generation plus? Mr. Bray.
Yeah, well, what we have, if we were to take the 20th century as a model, the expansion of the automobile industry and the expansion of the aviation industry was actually good government building and working with industry to develop standards. And what NASA has done over the last 50 years is actually forged ahead and decided and figured out how to do spacecraft. It's not necessary for NASA to be doing that anymore. However, I think for the human race, NASA should be exploring beyond. I believe it is the taxpayers' desire, and I believe NASA is a very popular agency, and I think it is our human nature that is going to want to go explore. As these commercial companies, though, develop, there is a need for standardization of supply chain, standardization of materials, and standardization of construction of spacecraft, just like we had with aircraft and automobiles in the 20th century. And NASA is uniquely positioned to be able to take on that role. What NASA is missing right now is a visionary statement. Congress continues to decide how to tell NASA how to make spacecraft rather than letting the experts in the aerospace industry do it, and it plays games with these contracts. And it's time for that to be done. It's time for somebody to be in Congress who understands that and who can work with Marshall Space Flight Center, who has the relationships there to not only lead the 5th District forward, but lead the rest of this nation forward into a burgeoning economy in the 21st century of commercial space development.
Thank you. Congressman Brooks.
I was chosen to be co-chairman of the Space Committee because I believe in NASA. In that role, with that influence and persuasive abilities that y'all bestowed upon me, we've made successful strides with respect to the Space Launch System to replace the Constellation program that was unilaterally cut by President Obama because he had a different view, a different vision. The Space Launch System is going to enable us to get to the moon, Mars, and beyond. And let me emphasize something. If you don't have a large vehicle, there's very little, if any, commercial vehicle market other than satellites and things of that nature. For example, right now, what does commercial crew do? Well, it helps ferry up supplies to the space station. What happens if there is no space station? Space station is there because of NASA. Space station is there because we've got workhorses like the shuttle and now the Space Launch System that enables us to put those kinds of vehicles in space. I'll continue to pursue it as I've done in the past.
Thank you. Mr. Bray, 30 seconds.
Well, the congressman's record is clear. He voted on a bill in committee to cut NASA's budget last August by $1.3 billion, and he has been antagonistic toward commercial space companies, which has hurt this district and it has hurt the development of commercial space industry. What's important for us to understand is that it is about what we are going to do as an overall industry, not about what we're doing simply to protect jobs in a particular district. And we need cooperation across the party lines where all the NASA centers are involved so that NASA and Marshall Space Flight can participate.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, the last question goes first to you. Congress could change federal law so that states could levy a sales tax on all retail purchases made using the internet. As we all know, internet-based sales are a growing part of the United States retail market. The inability of state governments to collect these sales taxes results in a loss of tax dollars for schools and other public services, and places local merchants, locally based merchants, at a competitive disadvantage. How do you feel about this issue of taxation of internet-based sales?
I'm going to respond to that with the second of my 2 minutes. My first minute I'm going to use to respond to some false statements made by my opponent. I'm going to cite other sources. Per the Huntsville Times, article dated May 30, 2014, quote, "The $17.9 billion okayed for NASA was $250 million more than it got this year, and $435 million more than the White House requested," end quote. Huntsville Times, something that I helped work on. Lee Roop of the Huntsville Times in an editorial, quote, "Alabama's congressional representatives seek positions in Congress where they can support NASA, and then they do it. United States Rep. Mo Brooks, Republican Huntsville, is vice chair of the subcommittee that authorizes NASA spending. Brooks helped draft language in the House bill just passed that protects SLS development. Look at third parties. They'll tell you what's really going on. Now to the internet sales tax, quite frankly, I'm wrestling with that. On the one hand, I'm concerned about the adverse effect it may have on the internet economy and the burdens it's going to place on households by having to pay yet another tax. On the other hand, I understand the interest of brick and mortar retailers who are concerned about the unfair competition that internet retailers have over them because internet retailers don't necessarily pay that tax. On the other hand, I'm concerned about imposing the tax because what it may do is push a lot of our internet retailers out of the United States of America to Canada or Mexico, thereby costing us jobs. So I welcome suggestions and insight from you, the people in the Tennessee Valley who would be impacted by that if I face that vote, and I may face that vote sometime in November or December.
Mr. Bray, 1 minute.
I actually agree with the Congressman on this one. It is a complex issue, and even when it was first brought up in the late 1990s and early 2000s, as the internet was really, just coming on the scene for sales and revenue, it should have been handled then. It should have been addressed then, so that we wouldn't have to be undoing it now. The challenge that we have is how do we transition the Alabama economy and the 5th District economy into this new age? And if that's the path we're going down, then I don't know that the local shops would benefit necessarily from imposing an internet tax on internet companies. That being said, we actually have a bigger problem, and the bigger problem is that we still have growing big corporations that are literally running mom and pop shops and small businesses out of business, and we are always asking the federal government to step in and figure out a way to subsidize the development of small businesses instead of making it an equal, fair playing ground. That's what we should be working on in Congress, not specific issues pertaining to a specific industry.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, 30 seconds.
I have nothing further to add.
Thank you. 1 minute for closing statements, and Mr. Bray, you go first.
So I decided to run for office because we don't have a lot of problem solving going on. Many of the problems that we're facing today with ISIS, immigration, the economic situation that we're in, they've actually been decades in the making. And we've had every combination of Republican and Democrat in every part of the House. We've had a Republican president with Democratic Congress. We've had a Democrat president with a Republican Congress, and both parties have had all three. And yet here we stand 50 years later since General Eisenhower with the inability to balance a budget and the inability to stop the ups and downs of economic downturns. And every single time it's happened, and this time, this particular recovery is the first time that the top 10% have recovered better and the bottom 90% have actually lost wealth over this recovery period. That is a problem, and it's driven by our economic and monetary model, and it's about time we as Americans start talking about it, or else all of these other smaller ideas that we discussed mean nothing.
Mr. Brooks.
I want to emphasize something. We face a lot of challenges. We know what they are. But you know what? America is the greatest nation the world has ever seen. And we've held that lofty position for at least 7 decades. When you think about our economy, our wealth, our military prowess, our freedoms. Why? We are the greatest nation the world has ever seen because of basic foundational principles. We are a republic, which means that we get to control our future. We have a Bill of Rights, which means that we are protected from government oppression. We have free enterprise, which means that we all can excel to the extent we want to study hard, work hard, take chances, take risks. We promote self-reliance. We have moral values that guide us to do the right thing rather than the wrong thing. These are the principles that made America the greatest nation in world history. And those are the very principles that I take to Washington, D.C. on your behalf as I work to promote and protect the United States of America from any number of challenges. And remember this, America, if we rely on our basic foundational principles, we can defeat any challenge we may face.
Thank you. Let's thank these candidates. Mr. Bray. On behalf of the sponsors of tonight's program, I feel certain they would want for me to thank you for your attendance and participation. And as others have already indicated, I certainly hope that this well-informed group will go vote on election day. Thank you and have a nice evening.